fans, Bills Mafia, you got to be feeling pretty good about yourself, don't you? Don't you? You can probably kick back and thinking to yourself, oh, we a playoff team this year. This is our year to win this division. It's our time to shine. It's our time to roll. All those years without the playoffs, man. Nashville Nightmare my ass. Made the playoffs twice in the past 3 years. Woo! It's a new dynasty. It's keeping Marv Levy alive. Something like that. But hey, Bills Mafia's suffered a lot in recent years. Unfortunately, Pancho Villa won't be around to potentially see this team do even bigger and better things, and that sucks. Rest in peace, brother. But nonetheless, you look at 2019. This team rode a really, really top-level defense and a pretty good running game to enjoy quite a bit of success. Now, granted, they didn't supplant the New England Patriots atop the AFC East. It was probably a bridge too far for them in 2019. But you're talking about your young second-year quarterback, Josh Allen, showed you a little bit more, which was a key thing, the most important thing. Your defense played well under head coach Sean McDermott. You got quite a bit again out of that running game. Frank Gore, Devin Singletary, and Josh Allen as well. Type of formula that can lead to some success. It might not always be pretty, but it's effective and gets the job done. And, from an organizational standpoint, I thought that win on Thanksgiving last year against the Cowboys in Dallas is huge. Wasn't that a big win for that organization? That's when people really started to take notice of this Bills team, because earlier on in the year, you may be kind of thinking like, hey, it might just be a bit of a fluke, or they haven't really played much of anybody. But that was a game, Thanksgiving, people started to take notice of them, that they could be legit. They were legit until they got into the playoffs. And then after jumping out to that big, 16-0 lead in the first half in Houston against the Texans, they choked really bad in the second half. There's no other way to put it. Still, because they were going against Bill O'Brien, obviously he was going to still find a way to give them opportunities even when there shouldn't have been, and they still got their opportunities and forced the game to overtime before eventually the Texans were just too much to overcome. But the playoffs, second time in 3 seasons. If you're the Bills and you're saying we're trying to change a culture and you're trying to get out of that losing mentality, that losing mindset, it sucks that you would have liked to at least maybe won a playoff game and made a little bit of progress in that sense. But getting back to the playoffs again so quickly, after so many years of having to wait to get there back in 2017, has got to feel pretty good. Got to feel pretty good. And you're looking at this team now heading into 2020, and with some of the things that have happened around them, and looking what you've still got on this team, you're saying, yeah, I kind of feel good about ourselves. Granted, you lost some key guys off of that defense. You lost veteran Lorenzo Alexander to retirement, kind of a leader on that unit. But that type of stuff happens. You lost Jordan Phillips, you lost Shaq Lawson. That was a big deal, certainly. But at the end of the day, you could sit there and say that, how much did he really contribute anyways? There's a reason he's not there. You know what I mean? Lost Jordan Phillips. Again, a guy that had provided quite a bit of presence for them in the middle of that defense. But they made some moves. They brought in guys like Mario Addison and Vernon Butler. It felt like they were just raiding old former Panthers pretty much, signing A.J. Klein and even Josh Norman. They're kicking the tires on him with a 1-year deal. But hey, you bring him in to play the second corner opposite Tre'Davious White, maybe it won't be such a bad deal there. But you look at some of the guys they lost, you look at some of the guys they brought in, and you could say, it doesn't really feel like they lost all of that much off of this defense. Maybe a little bit, but not that much. But the big deal, the big news, was obviously the big trade that they made to go out and give up a first-round pick and other compensation to the Minnesota Vikings to bring in Stefon Diggs. One thing that this team was lacking, while they improved the talent around Josh Allen in 2019 in that offseason before the year began, they were lacking like an impact player, a difference maker, a number one type of guy. And while Stefon Diggs is not like a true elite number one type of wide receiver, for them, he could represent a good enough option where he can be a de facto number one for them and help other guys out in that receiving core. Make John Brown a more dangerous number 2 guy. Make Cole Beasley a more dangerous slot receiver. make somebody like Dawson Knox more dangerous as a tight end over the middle. I mean, that was a big deal. That's the type of deal that you make when you say, hey, we feel like we like our chances this year, and this guy is somebody that can help take us over the hump and can make a big difference. And there's certainly the potential that it can do that. Now, when you trade away a first round pick like that, that means you don't necessarily have a bunch of draft pick capital to invest on guys that are going to contribute right away. But they took Epineza, the defensive lineman from Iowa, in round number 2. Admittedly, not the hugest fan of his, but we'll see how he fits there. Zach Moss, the running back from Utah, in round 3, should really serve as a nice complement to Devin Singletary in that big Bills backfield. And then they wasted a 5th-round pick on Jake Fromm from State Farm. Jake Fromm from Georgia. Personally, I don't see what it is. He combines the piss-poor arm strength and the bad accuracy with horrible pocket presence, but apparently people like him. Whatever. But those are some of the notable guys that they took. I think if you're a Bills fan, though, seriously, all joking aside here, there's a lot of reason for optimism. Most of your defensive core is intact. And you're also looking at potentially continued development of 2018 first-round pick Tremaine Edmonds. Now, he's going to be year 3 in the NFL, year 3 in this system, and he's all of, 21, 22 years of age? It's crazy. And then you've got Ed Oliver, last year's 9th overall pick, who certainly showed some flashes late in the year in 2019. Now you got another year for him in the system. How's his sophomore season going to go? If you're talking about most of your core intact and potentially even better play out of guys like Edmonds and Oliver, this defense could be every bit as good as it was last year, if not better. I think that running game will be really good again. Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, and then you certainly have to add Josh Allen. I almost said Josh Mixon. What the hell am I talking about? Like I said, too many of these videos at once, guys, can screw you up sometimes. Josh Allen, when you talk about those 3 guys, the Bills could follow a similar formula to what they had last year, which is play great defense and be able to run the ball, and you'll be able to win quite a number of football games. And even in today's NFL, that still certainly holds true. They added a wide receiver that for them becomes their number 1 and was certainly better than anything that they had to roster, which was really badly needed. And you got Tom Brady leading the Patriots, which certainly calls into question the Patriots' reign of supremacy, their reign of terror atop the AFC East. The door is open. The opportunity is there for somebody to kick that goddamn door down, go through that mother effer, and sit there and say, this is our bitch, this is our division now. So if you're a Bills fan, lots of reason for optimism, lots of reason to feel good about this 2020 season. I think your biggest concerns would be defensively. What happens if Ed Oliver doesn't take that next step? What happens if Tremaine Edmonds doesn't take that next step? What if they don't develop and they don't become better and they kind of play at the same levels as 2019? Like, could the defense take a bigger step back, or a bit of a step back, I should say? So I think the bigger concern is going to be about Josh Allen and his development as a passer. I was a huge Josh Allen guy with him coming out of Wyoming. I had him as the top quarterback in that class, and the other quarterback I had just a little bit behind him was Lamar Jackson. So, you could question me about having Josh Allen as my top guy, but hey, at least I didn't have Baker Mayfield and Josh Rosen in my top 2 like a lot of other busters out there. Nonetheless, when you look at Josh Allen, he's a guy that certainly has all of the tools, the arm strength in the frickin' world, can make any throw that you want with velocity. He can stretch the ball down the field. Certainly has that panache for making some big-time special types of throws. And then when you look at, his size and his presence in the pocket and his ability to stay on his feet and ability to gain yards and big yards with his feet, certainly makes him a dangerous weapon. I think of him similar to like a Cam Newton. But the challenge is in today's NFL, can you really get by with a quarterback completing 58% of his passes? You know what I mean? Not every quarterback needs to complete 70% of their passes. I certainly don't think that's the case, especially if you're talking about a team with guys with speed like Stefon Diggs and John Brown on the outside. I'd sacrifice a few shorter completions for a few more chances down the field to make some big plays. But that's not what leads to Josh Allen completing 58% of his passes. He misses too many of the easy kind of basic throws, and you just can't have that. And if he continues to do that, the Bills will continue to be kind of this 9 to 10 win football team that tries to ride their defense and running game to a certain point, but they will never get any further because they just don't have enough of the right stuff at the quarterback position to be able to get there. You're now in year 3 of Josh Allen in the NFL. It's kind of now time to put up or shut up. And while he's not a bust, certainly not, because he did get his team to the playoffs and certainly had some big games and some big moments last year. You know, there's still reason to be excited about his potential and his possibility. I think that should be unquestioned. But there's also enough there to be able to say, you know, I have some real viable, legitimate concerns about him long term. I think ultimately the Bills in 2020 go as far as Josh Allen takes them. Now, I think they're going to be still good enough to win the division regardless, even if Josh Allen 2020 is similar to Josh Allen 2019. I really do. I think they're the best, most balanced, complete team in this division. I think they're going to win about 11 games. I think they will win the AFC East, ending the Patriots' reign of terror at the top of that division. But if Josh Allen plays better, like even if he just completes 63% of his passes and is a little more consistent with some of the more basic fundamental throws, you know, this is a Bills team that not only could get to the playoffs, but this is a team that could get to the playoffs and potentially create some noise. They really could. And while it feels funky to say that about the Bills, hey, you know, just because they have been bad for a long time doesn't mean it always has to stay that way. But it really, truly is going to come down to Josh Allen this year. I don't think there's any question about it. But the Buffalo Bills, BillsMafia, either way, you guys are still my pick to win the AFC East in 2020. How about that? Feels odd even saying it.